So hello to all the viewers and those of you who are here with us in the Institute. This panel that we're about to open and discuss is dedicated to the security threats in the military security way of the systems we're coping with. Especially we'll be paying attention to the conversions of the arenas and conversions of the threats. I will start with a bit of an anecdote. Between the first Passover and the second Passover celebration, it was bombed with articles and papers. Some of them were by people who has a PhD and others as well that were alarming that the conversion of alerts will lead to war that will be on the gate of the state of Israel, and the Palestinian arena will be simmering from within, and Hezbollah will be attacking us, coordinating from the north. Iranians will be sending drones from all the arenas, and we will be saying something very significant. One of the explanations is that our enemies see our weakness, a certain weakness, the way it's being actually indicated in our internal arena, and will be abusing this opportunity. And this will be the pivotal moment of a significant change that is currently happening. Well, first of all, Manu just described here all of the occurrences, so I will not be spending too much time and save the time of the viewers and those of you who are present this particular introduction. But there's certain things that are happening in all of your arenas. I would like to remind you who we have here with us that are yet to mention. Sima, she is the head of the research program of Iran and the Shia Crescent. Is it the Resistance Front? No, we'll call it soon. Orna, researching the Northern Arena, and Hezbollah, and Udi, who is in charge of the research of the Palestinian Arena. So obviously we're here, we're pushing together the best of the most important threats that Israel is currently facing. And I would like to open with one question to all of you. Whether we are in the midst of the pivotal strategic change and turn of the convergence of arenas and threats that is connected directly to the judicial overhaul we're experiencing here, and obviously the undermining of the internal resilience of Israel, or is it just a coincidence? Just a local flaming up of various threats we experienced in the past already. It's not necessarily connected to what is happening within Israel. How do you analyze the current state of affairs, the way we see it now? I will start with Udi, and then we'll move in this particular manner. Okay.
How do you analyze the situation as we see it now? I will start with can you hear me? This subject of it is different arenas parallel, and that for a long time this is not something new. That wasn't born now. And therefore, while this is not a phenomenon that this phenomenon has different faces, different angles. The intensity, this goes up and down according to the general strategic pictures. We are in an era, in a time that the world is very focused on the war, in the Ukraine, in the United States is focused, and they pay less attention to the Middle East. I don't want to take the things, my two panels on the panel said that, but Iran is using this opportunity and states new rules in the region. There was said about the Tanda drift, and Saudi Arabia is leading that this is maybe a current that we can do new tendency that or a parallel relationship we used to talk in the past. We can do with Israel and with other. We can do a normalization, and from all that is what's added to it, what is happening inside Israel. What is happening in Israel is its influences on two parameters. I remember that after the elections, I was in an event, a big event that took place in Abu Dhabi in the Emirates, and then representative from the Arab countries that they said we are happy with the results of the elections. We like in Israel to think that the stability, and from Netanyahu represents something a strong leader, and they realize that there's no stability and he is not a strong leader. That this whole idea deteriorated immediately, and and collapsed. And the second thing is that we look at us, we do not interpret us in a good way, our enemies, when they look at the tension, the inside the tension, and the taking place with the internal issues. This is a good occasion. Can we change the rules of the games? What happened so far? There is a weakness on the other side. Let's set new rules that can save us. Let's have new rules that will save us, serve us in the future. Each one of them is trying to change the rules to check to what extent Israel confront with all these events. And of course, when because we are all the time. We say about that the convergence of arena. So let's see what's happening on different arenas. In my opinion, I would say from every stage that we are challenged by the different arenas. In my opinion, the main issue is that I know that we don't agree on that, is Iran. Iran is using this situation to try to make new rules on the one hand, and the other hand, a lot of mistakes that we are doing.
So, General, I do agree with Udi on this matter. The difference of arenas is not necessarily, we wrote a memo on that, the war will come as war in a few different fronts. This is no news. Even the IDF is ready for that. What actually happened right now is that we do see more audacity, as Udi just described right now, a little bit of an attempt to benefit from the opportunity, what seems to them as Israeli weakness, and to do things they never dared to do before. I want to be, from the other hand, on the more optimistic end of the scale. Manu presented here the severity of the strategic situation and the strategic plan. I would look to be on the optimistic side and to see at few directions that maybe have a different opportunities and not necessarily just threats. The first of all is that the strength of the IDF is preserved and been proven during the last round as well. It's possibly we can talk about the political rank that was more limited and restricted and less audacious, but the power of the IDF is there, and an ability to handle and cope with few arenas at the same time is actually being constructed and built right now, and it exists already. By the very definition, the weakness that is perceived is not necessarily in the security context. An additional matter I would like to bring up is more in the direction of what we see right now as the internal developments in Israel. Look, this is actually reversible. We are within this process right now. We have this feeling that it's an endless process with no end in the end of the tunnel, but it's reversible. It's obviously in our hands, in the hands of the political rank mostly, to stop where they stop and start an actual dialogue or not. But this is reversible, and it's in our hands, and we can definitely change this matter. And the third aspect I would like to bring up, it's possible that from all of those horrible developments, in the end of the day, something good will grow, because very many different topics that were definitely kept under the rug, relationship between the government and the judiciary system, the whole topic of internal disagreements and etc., the internal rifts. It's possible that now when they are exposed in the open and are being discussed and talked through, maybe we'll move forward and find solutions that will allow us to move forward. I try to create an optimistic overview. I hope I managed to do so. Yeah, we are. I just would like to tell you and the viewers, we have the whole panel that will be focusing on the changes within Israeli society and judiciary overhaul. We're focused on the security risks and threats and etc. Sima, again, a general overview, and we'll be zooming in into details. I think differently from Orna that we are currently given at the point of certain conversion of the security processes that have a negative potential for Israel. As it happens very often, we talk about various stars that align, not all of it because of us, some of us completely unconnected to us, but they did align somehow, and you cannot ignore that. Obviously, and I completely agree with Udi, that Iran is in fact indeed the main security threat of Israel, our challenge, I would say. But what has happened today is a convergence among all of those aspects. There is a connection between the progress in the nuclear plan, and there is a connection to the encroachment of Iran on the global regional arena. So this encroachment is one among other components of this resistance front that Iran tries to create for quite a while, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip, or the militias, Iranian militias in Syria, in Iraq, and Houthis in Yemen. And the event that happened on the Temple Mount, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in detail, that connected the dots really. In fact, even there were no missiles launched from all of those geolocations, they all expressed their opinions, all the leaders of militias in Iraq, obviously Hezbollah, and the launch of the barrage of Hezbollah from Lebanon. This arena, this connection of arenas that Iran been talking for so many years was connected, not all of them through missiles, obviously, and obviously the relationship between Iran and China and Russia. This is a strategic development on international level. We never saw that before. Russia is in need of aid of Iran in military field, and Iran, Russia, and China are together implementing different steps of maritime drills. There are conversations about that the Chinese will sell things to Iranians and then transfer to Russia. So in fact, we are in a completely different international situation that existed before, of course, when those countries, Russia and China, voted in the Security Council against Iran and for the sanctions. Obviously, an additional process that is happening is the return of Syria into the arena, and the developing relationship between Iran and the Saudis, Bahrain, Jordan, and Egypt very soon. Israel can continue and say that they are processes, of course, and they are processes, obviously. But there's a certain point in time where those things are converging into one, and the question whether Israel will succeed. Of course, we will never mention what has happened on the other side, the undermined relationship between Jordan and Israel, the undermined relationship between the Emirates and Israel, the distancing of the chances of Saudis in Israel, and the certain cooling down of the relationship with the United States. All of those processes are together very negative processes. It will take time, if even at all, to amend those processes. Even the change will happen. And as I say, it could have happened that it will happen without some kind of internal aspects, but it's happening now when things are happening inside Israel as well. And I think with a very negative point of time from the national security perspective. I would like to throw in just a factual foundation that is very clearly understood, that convergence of geographic arenas happened obviously very clearly and proven as a result of what happened in the Palestinian arena, which was echoed on the Temple Mount, and what came up from Gaza, later on the Palestinians in Lebanon, and later on Palestinians in Syria and Golan Heights. Obviously, there is here a certain a trial, an experiment, I would say, in certain, how will it look, this convergence of geographic arenas. In each of those geographic arenas, Iran is present. So from Iranian perspective, seeing how, in fact, the Palestinian system is convergent geographical arenas where they are present, the Palestinians, this is quite a dangerous thing for Iranians, where the learning might be quite challenging for them in the future. I would like now to get into each of those arenas separately. I'm going to start with you, Sima. We'll start with the provocative questions. No, Iran and a provocative question. Iran, we'll start with Iran. Iran has central challenges, a threat on the nuclear program. They might reach the nuclear bomb level, and the expansion and encroachment of various malicious networks with strategic capabilities. And we constantly talk about that. We emphasize the threat. Let's challenge that. Maybe it's not a challenge. Maybe we're just trying to horrify our public. The nuclear program of Iran is possibly, according to what the CIA had, Burns said, they did not decide yet to go towards the nuclear bomb. They're playing on the lines a little bit, raising up the heat, and that it's very possible there is a halacha verdict of the leader that prohibits them from actually reaching the nuclear threshold. And the local programs, well, regional programs, besides Hezbollah, will be discussing, well, not a big actually threat, operational threat, and how the Minister of Defense said we attacked twofold at the same period of time the last year, and we are probably operating in a significant manner. So now there are different publications that Iran opened an additional front on the Red Sea. But again, maybe we are just trying to scare the public. It's maybe not that serious. Is it possible? Well, look, for me, for many years, I'm usually not mystical approach. I don't think we're pushing it too far. I think it is an event that happened here, and it's happening right now in our region. And we have to understand that it's not happening in the vacuum. Israel operates against Iran, as the Minister of Defense said, and he glorified the fact that during his term, they are more active in Syria during the last few months. Indeed, there is a lot of activity in Syria, and two guardians of the revolution were killed as a result of this operation. The Iranians will not be sitting on the lines forever without responding. It's true, Israel has been very aggressive in Iran and in Syria and definitely managed to cause damage to significant assets. And Iran has the toolbox that is not necessarily full with very effective tools, but Iran working as well, and they try again. As I said only 2 days ago, it has been published by the Shin Bet that people who are arrested in Judea and Samaria, Palestinians that Hezbollah recruited for the sake of the operations in the field. We're familiar with the Megiddo event that happened from nowhere. In fact, it took us a while to start to decipher and to issue the information to the Israeli public, but it came from Lebanon. It came under the protectorate of Hezbollah into the state of Israel, 70 kilometers from the border. It happened. Randomly, only one person was hurt. God forbid there would have been a bus full of soldiers that would have been killed. We would have now fighting a war with Hezbollah probably. So what I'm trying to say is we need to take into account that there is a connection of different, very destructive aspects that never existed at this particular level of strength. An open account with Iran and Israel, and the feeling that Israel is weaker, and the willingness of the Palestinians, especially of the Hamas, to actually increase and accelerate their activity to try to receive the support of the front. And as well, this is the question mark I'm putting here, whether the dialogue between Saudis and the Iran Houthis in Yemen that continues the ceasefire for now, does it actually allows the Houthis to operate against Israel? And they did threaten to do that. The maritime routes of Israel, a significant part of our commerce is going through that particular area. One can definitely try to push it into the corner and say that we exaggerate, but I think this time we do not exaggerate, actually. There is a convergence. There's definitely an open score, and there is a distress within Israel. And the external factors identify that and think it's possible they're mistaken, but they do think that one can actually try to challenge Israel right now.
There was a Megiddo event that had a light, but the potential would have been stronger. Could have ended in a war from the north. And we also see from the reports of the UN there's increase of the open activities of the Hezbollah with the document, and they don't hide anymore, and they also threaten they connect the deterioration, but it's clear that in Australia it goes on the threshold. There is something in the security that is nobody. Is it really Megiddo? Is an event? Is a rocket? Is the same event? And the second thing is, it is going in a direction of a war. It's a deterioration. Are we the IDF? What can we do with it?
So, well, that's true. That two very extraordinary events, because we used for a decade, and actually more than a decade, there was quite relative quiet on the Lebanese border. And there is reincarnation of an terrorist attack from the field of Lebanon into Israel. Only one person was wounded, though, but it succeeded. And another matter is actually the barrage of missiles from the southern Lebanon at such a significant scope of 34 missiles that were launched on Israel. Majority of them were intercepted, but the audacity of actually doing such a thing, obviously we don't want to continue to live under such a reality and going back to the reality where we are being constantly shot at from the north. Very extraordinary events. Whether there is a connection between two, of course, if you look into the connective affinity between two, is the cooperation between what we usually call today the axis of resistance, which is the Shia axis we're well familiar with. There's the proxies of Iran and Iran, plus the Palestinian component of the various resisting agents, Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. All of those together create here the same joint thread. They have a joint headquarters. They work together. They have a war room together and they plan together. And regardless, I still want to state that two of those events, they have certain internal logic that is quite different. The first event that was in the middle of March was on the background of what Sima described as the signals of frustration of Iranians of disability to respond to Israeli operations. And Hezbollah tried to do something in this particular context of frustration. This is one event. And another event was very well connected to the Temple Mount events. So this way or another, that's... it's actually he is walking the very thin line. Yes, he's walking a very thin line. Reading the weakness of Israeli system and extra audacity and willing to take more risks. That's true. There is an increase of the self-confidence of Nasrallah. We can see that in his speeches and addresses and his actions as well now, what you actually presented recently at the borderline of Lebanon. And it's true. They are different components. They're different components. And the end of the day of acceleration there is definitely miscalculation, deterioration. This is a risk, as we described that. It's very true. The more friction we experience, the more chances of some kind of threat that happens. Well, we did not respond to Hezbollah. Do you think we missed an opportunity? Well, look, I'm not really sure that any reaction to Hezbollah at this particular timing, one should have responded in any significant manner to Hezbollah or more significant manner versus Hezbollah. I actually think that from Israel perspective, it's important to look at it as an open score with Hezbollah, because there is deterioration in deterrence and we need to operate in order to re-establish the deterrence with Hezbollah. I would like to say something else, that there is another component, we call it the misleading or actually false confidence. I think they also were, and they do show significant confidence towards the external aspects. Israel is weak. Israel will not complete its 80 years of existence. But from the other hand, he's also very restricted. He's hiding behind the Palestinian factors. He didn't admit he lives in some kind of space of bit of ambiguousness and denial. He did not admit that Hezbollah was behind any of the activities of any sort. And he actually said that I would rather keep it quiet. So there is still some kind of element of restriction, I would say. Oh, fine. So, Udi. The Palestinian Arena, let's come to you. We do talk about that for quite a while. Two main threats at the Palestinian Arena. One of them is a long-term threat of lack of any strategy on the Palestinian arena of separation. We are actually spilling into one-state solution that we describe as a complex and problematic solution, in fact. And the second aspect is the continuum, a whole continuum of different events that might bring to a very violent eruption in the short term, and we also mentioned that. So there is violence and there is the short-term change and the long-term. To what extent the policy of the State of Israel and the judiciary overhaul impact both of those processes, to your opinion?
Can you hear me? The first thing is to say that to continue what Orna said, that we have to make clear this point. Also Hezbollah and also Iran, they don't want to war with Israel. Each of them had a proxy. The main idea is to challenge Israel, to challenge it on its borders, so Israel will not be free for other issues like the nuclear issue in Iran. And therefore, the way is to threaten Israel on its border, that all the proxies, including the Palestinian plan and the Palestinians, are the easiest ones to operate. Hamas and the Iranians do influence directly on this axis with their training, with their material, with the weapons. Everybody was waiting that the Al-Aqsa crisis would take place. They were all waiting to create what would be, and this event took place. And everybody was waiting for that event. Everybody is ready to support and act against Israel. And we have to remember this issue. The second thing is that I think it's happening something strange. The government of Israel, it gives the hospitality to Hamas, doesn't touch Hamas because it's getting stronger in Lebanon. and we don't touch it because it's under the umbrella, security umbrella of his Hezbollah, and the of the and the and so recovery of Gaza Strip. So Gaza Hamas is feeling very good. So all these events on the Temple Mount that didn't succeed to do a large intifada. He wanted to bring a large intifada and couldn't do it. There were some serious attacks, but his success is not very good. But the other hand, Israel is cooperating with it, give it immunity in Lebanon and in Gaza. It helps to Hamas to make the Palestinian Authority relevant, to bring to the end of the Palestinian Authority. This is the strategic warning that the present government of Israel will not say it on a stage openly. The present government believes that we can control the occupied territories. It will be cantons, and with that we will solve the Palestinian problem. This is the works we're doing here, and we understand it creates a very big problem that everything will explode, and we'll bring it into our home. Because instead of taking it out, we bring it in. And that we don't see, we don't talk about it. So what happens with the protest? There is a very strong connection between keeping democracy and the way we refer to the revolt. We don't want to connect between the two events. Because more and more people will come, that their positions are more to the right wing, what refers to the Palestinian issue. So if we all take down, we put away the Palestinian problem, we think that we can put it in the corner, it will be irrelevant. But it will explode now in a small range, but it will explode in the future on a larger range. So in the chaos on the government, they can do the next mistake on the Temple Mount, and again all these things will burst out. Thank you. I want to sum up with short sentences. First of all, also if the thing is not right factual, the visions of the future, the forecast in the Middle East are very important, and the strongness of the civil society and the hurting the systems of the IDF. It has influence and may change the whole balance of powers in the region. It doesn't change the fact that it is the retaliation balance can be changed. On the other hand, Iran and the Palestinian arena are in front of a large change, and that increasing because of the inner situation in Iran. It's the strategic decision to address China and Russia, and not to debate the dominance of the USA. And as it takes it away, the nuclear accord. And what you told, the other thing is the perception of the Iran of a good neighborhood, and to make better this relationship with the neighboring country, because also the other neighbors are afraid of the American retreat from the region. And the deterioration, the Palestinian story is deteriorating for the perception of the Iranians. It is a problem. So maybe we're in convergence of arenas, but the geographical potential is understood. And this connection, I only want to say, to emphasize one thing that Udi said, that the intended weakening of the Palestinian Authority will have security and legal influences on the status of Israel. It will be violent, and we will have to confront it in the region. I would like to thank you for your contribution, And I invite the next panel. היה נתק בין זה לזה.